talks about how that you have to make space. Good morning. And it's another Wednesday already. Seems like it happens every time this week that Wednesday comes at the same time. So here we are again. So I want to welcome you this morning to the Wednesday morning class, and especially to you that are here. Thank you for coming, and you that came to the 10 o'clock. We did Tai Chi and exercise and breathing exercises and intercessory prayer. We get a lot in at 10 o'clock. So thank you for being a part of that. I want to welcome you that are joining us online today as we continue talking about the dimensions. This is something that I started talking about a lot of years ago, and I was kind of a lone voice, which I tend to be quite often, kind of someone who helps to bring in the ordinances of heaven into the earth. Wow, I just heard that in myself. Wow, I got to think about that. As a channel, I am willing to bring the ordinances of heaven into the earth. Wow. That's powerful. So here we are to continue this discussion on the fact of let me lay a premise for you for this idea. And we'll use this idea of the God idea, I call it, because really God's more an idea than anything. It's an idea people have of something infinite. We call it God. We label it God. And I know we need to do that at times in 3D language. We need to use the communication language of the people. But we always want to insert a little more deeper meaning than what the word meant in the old way as we use the old word in the new way. Do you get that? It says, I shall make old things new. So that's what we're doing here. We're using old language of the Bible. It's been around for a long time. Of course, the Miracles Now has been around few decades, and Kabbalah's been around 5,000 years, and about chakras is thousands of years old, and Native American, all of that is ancient language, but we're using the old language in a new way, right? And that's what my intention here at HeartLight is, to make a lot of our old concepts, old constructs of old beliefs fit the time we live in. Does that make sense to you? You see, if we keep going back and putting all of this in the time in which a prophet lived, or a teacher lived, or Jesus lived, let's say, or Muhammad lived, or Moses lived, or Abraham lived, we're going back to their time, which doesn't fit our time. We don't need the God of Abraham or Isaac or Jacob. You need the God of you. Do you get that? And people will quote, I serve the God of Abraham. I serve the God of Isaac and Jacob. What about the God of you? And this is how God shows up in every generation. As generations change, as evolution takes place and systems change, then God wants to change with it. And you are the way in which God can change. Because it said, I am God and I change not. Follow me. That means the idea of this God idea, this infinite being, is stable and consistent. But for us to understand it, we have to give it a consciousness to incarnate in that's progressive. So that's how spirit progresses is by our ability to let it incarnate into human consciousness and let the human consciousness grow and evolve, taking spirit with it. So that means that in the consciousness we're in 2022 is the consciousness God wants to show up in. I hope you get that, because there's no reason for me to pray about what's going on right here on the planet, in Ukraine and all that with Russia, and be referring back to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob or anybody else. We need the God of 2022. Where is God in our time? And you are, and that's what we're going to talk about today, you are God's point in time and space. So much. All right, today we're going to talk about bringing into our life and creating an altar. Wow, I could do so much with the word altar, because altar can mean literally doing something. If you have a room or a space in your house where you can have a place that you can go to, where that you can make a physical altar, put some nice things on it that's spiritual, candle, many things like that. Tuning fork, your own tuning fork, or something like that. I would encourage you to do that. But first of all, we got to create the altar within. Because it doesn't matter what we make outside if it's not in some way the expression and extension of what we build inside. Remember the message not too long ago about being a builder? How many of you remember that? Shame on you. I did a whole Sunday meeting on every person must build, and you either build on sifting sand, or you build on the solid rock. But every day you're building by the choices you make. Each choice is a brick. And you lay brick upon brick, choice upon choice, and then you use mortar, which is love, to hold the bricks together. And that's a house that will stand the storm. But if you just pile bricks up, think about it. Just pile a bunch of bricks up and call it a wall or a house, and the storm comes through, it crumbles because it had no mortar to hold it together. So the mortar of the new building that we are building, a new consciousness, the mortar is unconditional love and acceptance. And you can tell what I'm talking about by using the things that happen in your life. When something specific and drastic happens, like an illness, a sickness, or a death of a loved one, or whatever happens that's just really emotional and deep, that's when you want your building to stand. You don't want your building to fall apart. And then you just went to a service and made positive affirmations and I am the presence of God in the earth and all these things we say, and then something hits us, a storm hits us in life, and next thing we know, all the bricks that we've built, which are man concepts. See what I'm saying to you? I could build a wall on the revelation of love, but I want that love to stand when the storm comes and not be knocked out of that consciousness we call unconditional love. If I'm not, then my building crumbles. I love the old hymn that says, upon this rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. Upon this rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. It's an old famous hymn. So make sure, and this is what I think Spirit's saying to us this morning, be sure you are steady, that you are centered, that you are ready to stand and hold your vision and faith in the time of great storms that are yet coming our way. Prepare now. There's nothing wrong with preparing yourself. And that's what I hope what we're doing here, and that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we find a new center? A new center. And that new center that we want to find is in the center of change itself. It's like finding the eye in the midst of a storm, of a hurricane, of a tornado. You have that eye of stillness while everything is whirling around at destructive speed. The eye stays established. Now, that's why we keep leading you to the center of the I am in you. The I am is the I in the midst of every storm. But if you get out of that and get into the storm, what happens? It begins to destroy your faith. And then you become reactive. And the world that is crumbling begins to act through you. So I really think this is all about remaining strong and established. It certainly is not by any accident that there has been a recalling of some indigenous ceremonies, especially for some of us who connect to the more Native American ceremonies. Which one of them would be the acknowledgement of the directions. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now let me try to explain to you why it's important for us to dip back into some of these ancient indigenous ceremonies. One, they lived at a time that they were more close and connected to earth intelligence. The earth taught them. They didn't have a government to teach them. They didn't have an education system. They learned from nature. They learned from nature. And even our Bibles say, which I've not heard a fundamentalist preacher ever quote, not saying they haven't, and that is the earth shall teach you. That's in the Bible. And the earth shall teach you. The beast, the animal kingdom will teach you. I remember several years ago we had a Native American chief come and speak when we lived in Columbus, Ohio. And on a break, we had a little garden in the back, and I was walking on this garden, and we had a lot of woods and nature. And he came out there and he said to me, "You're standing in God's classroom." He said, "I want you to look around and see what you see." And what I'd been watching was some ants and other insects and things that were in the garden that was kind of moving, doing their thing and whatever. I saw a spider, I remember that. And he says, "What do they teach you?" And I thought for a long time, well, they're not thinking about dying like we do as human beings. They have no frontal cortex in which to determine how long they're going to live. They're not working to pay their insurance premium or their old age premium. They're not worried about their next meal. They're not worried about a war. They're not worried. They are just living their nature. Living their nature. And that's what I learned, that I worry too much about stuff that hadn't even happened, that's in the future, that hasn't taken place. And I can learn from them to live more mindfully and in the present. Does that make sense to you? So we learn. So these are things that, for whatever reason, when the Native Americans and so many other cultures we could get into, But when Native Americans were seen as heathens and savages and needed to be saved, and really those who were trying to save them were the ones that needed to be saved. If you read the history of the first ones that came over here, they were pillaging and raping and they brought disease. There was hardly any disease that we have today before the Europeans landed in America and brought disease from England and Ireland and Europe. That is fact. And that's why a lot of them were wiped out. Anyway, the point is, because of certain of their ceremonies that are very earth-oriented, they were edited out as time went on, because there began to be a great disconnection between earth and spirit in about every religion. Earth was seen as inanimate objects that did not have any soul or spirit or intelligence to it. It did not matter to kill something. It did not matter to destroy something. They had to do certain things to survive, but they always released the spirit of the animal. They recognized the spirit of the crop, of the corn. They didn't just do things mindfully, unmindfully, but they did them mindfulness with the spirit that gave them the food and gave them the ground and gave them the gardens and the water. Didn't take long for us to lose that in this culture until a few decades ago, and we begin to see a restoring of some of that in Native American ceremony. Sweat lodges, the 4 directions, and what else? A dance, Native American dance, how powerful it was. Some of the Native American peyote and things that they use for ceremony. Now, why I'm telling you that is because before we can move fully as a candidate or initiate to fully move into 5D, the first thing that has to be done is everything has to be restored that has been edited out in 3D by mankind. And it's called in the Bible the restitution of all things. So everything that's got edited out has to be restored in this last time of this dimension. So that's why Kabbalah has shown up in the last few decades and made more famous by famous people even. Native American culture, African American culture, we've been connected to that, whether we admit it or not, for a long, long time. We've danced to it. We've made love to it. We've done all kinds of things to Native American culture. And any other culture, as far as you can name, has contributed to how we are in the Western mindset of those kind of things. So we got to finish up this restoring of these things that's been edited out and coming back to us. And that's what we're going to do here today by using the directions. We're actually going to talk about 7 directions, not 4, which is the general teaching of Native American direction, but we're going to do that. You want to do something for me? Pass these out? Just make sure everybody gets, we use the young ones. Just give everybody one of those. Now that is just my little simple drawing, but it's just something to give you some kind of visual to what we're going to be talking about. I was amazed before I get into the directions how much the Bible speaks of this. I really had no idea how much it talks about the directions. So I wanted to give you a few scriptures out of the Bible about using especially the 4 directions. Okay, what I'm going to read is out of Genesis 28 and 14. How many here has a Bible at your house? Anybody here looked at it in the last 3 days?
No.
7 days.
Look at you.
Thank you. And a child shall lead them. You know, I mentioned so much here. I would suggest we consider more Bible training. Now, sorry?
Is this considered a 5D altar? What is this considered? The altar that we're creating, is there a name?
I don't know what you're asking. Sorry.
The altar that you just passed out.
Oh, the altar. We're creating it in 3D.
3D altar, okay. That's the question, thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. So anyway, the directions are mentioned in the scriptures. I'm going to read Genesis 28 and 14. Your descendants will also be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south, and you and your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So by recognizing the spirits of the east, the west, the north, and the south, and then the ones we're going to add here, you can live the blessed life by calling them in every day. Another one I'll read to you is 1 Chronicles 9:24. And I like this one. The gatekeepers were on 4 sides: the east, the west, the north, and the south. Anytime it speaks of gates, it's talking about portals. So there are keepers of portals. That keep the gates on the north, the east, the south, and the west. Isaiah 43. I love this one. Starts out, do not fear, for I am with you. Who's with you? I am. Oh, it's not the God out there in the sky somewhere. It's the God and presence in you, the I am. I like that. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east and gather you from the west. And I will say to the north, give them up. And to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Using these directions. A couple of more. Revelation 21 and 13. There are 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. 3, 3, 3. We know the power of the number 3. So the 3 represents 3D gates or portals to multidimensional access to other levels. And one more, Ezekiel 10 and 11. When they moved, they went in any of their 4 directions. In other words, they went each 4 directions without turning as they went. But they followed the directions which they faced without turning as they went. What does that mean to you? Be spiritually metaphysical with me when you hear things like that. Now, I know I have this blessing, I guess, a gift to be able to read things and hear it differently, but what does that mean when it said they did not turn?
Didn't change?
They look back.
You're on the right track. They did not lose their focus. Here's a scripture. Look not to the right nor to the left, but behold that which is before you. So the turning means the stability of staying strong and steady into whatever is happening and changing around us by our connection with those who are assigned to us to help us through this time. But I'm telling you what, if you're talking about the spirit realm or the angel realm or whatever you want to call it, one thing about that whole realm, it's not aggressive. It will not make you do anything. It has to be invited. You have to invite guides and spirit of 100% pure light. You have to invite any angels that you've been assigned to that's working with you. You can't just demand them. You have to invite them. And they'll come in at that point. So anyway, there's some really, one more I found. Psalms 107:3. And gathered them from the lands, from the east, from the west, from the north, and from the south. That just amazed me when I decided to look that up and see if there's any scriptures that had the directions in it. And I found 3 sheets of it. So seek and you shall find, right? In that way. All right, let's begin. Again, this is something that you can do from within yourself, but I think it's a great idea if any of us can take the time to have a place to center ourselves. Now, again, I want to make this clear. The purpose of this is to make sure you have a center to go to that is no longer a center outside of yourself. In other words, if you're centered in the government, they have all the answers for you. If you're centered in man's religion, if you're all your eggs is in the financial system, which is a tough one because some of us have money and we have some little bit in savings and what to do with it and all of that. I suggest you be very clear about the direction. If you have any kind of investments or money in anything, it's time to get direction where to put that and how to use it. And you can find that from your inner financial counselor that lives inside of you. Now, there's nothing wrong with going to somebody, but you don't want somebody that's going to lead you down a path of greed. And we just found that out, by the way, for us. We've had our, what money I have into something that I didn't know had all the hidden costs they were taking out that I didn't know. I thought it was a certain percentage, and I found out it was a lot more because I didn't read really the details of it. So I'm restructuring that right now and meeting with new people that I feel is fitting more of what I'm hearing and feeling inside about what I should do. So it doesn't matter how much you have, but make sure that you're clear about where to keep it. We know the dollar is losing most every day in America. It's just paper they're printing. And the only thing that keeps it going is a belief in it. But as we lose that, then that could change. Is it gold? Is it silver? I do not know for you. No one can tell you that, not even an advisor. But you have that wisdom inside of yourself. So it's a good time. Should I maybe have some of that food that lasts 25 years? I do. I've been carrying it around for a long time, but I've got some of that food that lasts 25 years down in the basement. And I don't know if I'll need it or not, but if I do, I got it. I'm glad to have it. And I felt to do it at the time that I did it. And if you're being directed that way, you should think about that too. So I'm not here to tell you what to do or not to do, but really get clear. And you have spiritual guides that are going to help you to guide what to do, when to do it, and all of that. So let's look at. So you can just begin by looking to the east first. You want to start out with the east. The east. Why the east? The spirits of 100% pure light from the east come to offer you creative guidance for the day. They are your spiritual guides for the day to help you create your day in divine alignment with that day's spiritual purpose. Every day you wake up with a spiritual assignment and purpose. There's something every day that should in some way change things or affect things in a spiritual way. And this is why you can't just think Sunday and Wednesday. Now, I'm not following you around on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so I don't know what you're doing. But if you're keeping your life so full of things that you no longer have the time for meditation, contemplation, and for opening to spiritual guidance and leadership, I would suggest you rethink some of your day. And be sure, face the east. And of course, we say that the sun comes up in the east. I say that is not really true, but we will use it as an analogy because it sure seems like the sun comes up in the east and looks like it does to my eyes, but actually the thing is the earth has turned and the sun hadn't done anything. It's just sitting in the middle and the earth turns, making it look like the sun is rising in the east and going down in the west, but it isn't. Good example of illusion. But we will use the fact that it is the east to us that we see the sun starting to show up on our side of the earth. And of course the east is important because of the fact that it is the rising of a new day, a new age, a new dimension, whatever you choose to call it, will come out of the east. There's a place in the Bible that's in the back of my mind that says that the coming of the Christ consciousness, we call it, shall come as lightning from the east. And a lot of new thought and new age, if you think about it, came from the east. Chakras, meditation, these are all Eastern traditions that was around long before Western culture took over America. And people who continued to try to do that were seen as witches and witchcraft and was hung and burned at the stake and all kinds of things because they wanted to suppress such things as necromancy. Now, the Bible is very against necromancy. It's an abomination, one of the abominations of 613 laws in the Old Testament. And if you don't know what that means, it means talking to the dead. But I'm going to explain that to you if you want me to. Yes. In the Old Testament, the door had not been opened to the spirit world. There was no door into the spirit world. So people who were entering into that level was entering into the underworld, where there were such things as earthbound souls and spirits and all kinds of things, and they were pulling them up through their psychic abilities. Therefore, you should not be talking to the dead. Then, 2,000 years ago, the door showed up. I am the door. Who's the door? Jesus? No. I am is the door in Jesus. Jesus opened up the door in himself. And one of the things that he said he did, he went in to preach to the spirits in prison. In other words, all of the spirit of the dead was released through the door. Now here's the real kicker. When somebody calls up an ancestor of ours or somebody that is on the other side, they're not talking to the dead. Let me tell you, some Sundays I talk to the dead. I thought that might. I say that in the kindest way, But you get my point. You can talk to a person and want to knock on their head and say, anybody home? There is more dead people walking around in bodies than people are dead who are out of the body of death. So we're not talking to the dead when you're talking to the spirit world. But we can go into that place because there is a door in which we can now go through it. And that's why we have to update things from, say, Old Testament to New Testament, and from New Testament to this Testament that we're entering in right now, the third one. Does that make any sense to you? I hope so. So the East, you want to face every morning, and the idea of the rising, a new day has started. Now here's the first thing that I do that I'm going to share with you. This is the day the Lord hath made, and in it will I be glad and rejoice. Let's say that with me. This is the day the Lord has made, and in it shall I rejoice and be glad. In it. I do that every morning. First thing when I wake up, I realize, okay, this is the start of a brand new day. and offer your creative spirit that will guide you and keep you in a line with your assignment, your spiritual assignment for that day. Now I want you to get this. Every day you wake up and you say, universe, God, whatever you call it, what is my assignment for today? What can I do? How can I show up for you? And you may not hear anything right then, but you may be standing in the bank line or at the grocery store line, and it's long, and somebody's got coupons galore, and somebody beside you just feels attracted to turn around and say something to you. And immediately you know a door has opened for you, that you can plant some seed, that you can say something, that you can encourage them, that you can give them some kind of hope. And at that moment you feel the atonement, you feel the alignment between your human incarnation and your divine self. And from that you're energized. Now, I can't say all the time I have all the energy I'd like. But when I come here and I teach and I speak on Sunday and whatever, I work at it and I work hard. Sometimes you see me even perspiring a little bit, but I'm feeling good because I'm doing what I came to do. And God's callings are without repentance. And when God has called you into the earth to be what my calling is, or whoever, and I'm doing it, I'm not just being it, but I'm doing it. Oh my God, what a release of energy. Now that's different than just being tired out from depression or anxiety or worry or over being taxed by the world or worried about your finances or whatever. That's a different tiredness. This is the good one, because it is, I have just done something that I was born to do today. So call in the spirits of the 100%, those who will create guidance for your day. West, to show you what needs to be transformed and what you need to throw away or let go of. Because it is hard sometimes to do this on your own, and I want you to know you've got specific spiritual guides that, if you'll call them in, will help you to let go of what it is you're trying to let go in your life that you're having a hard time. Maybe it's something, we all are addicts. We're all addicted to something. I don't care if it's food or whatever. That's just part of human 3D, is to get into something that we think we have to do over and over and over and over again until it's ingrained within our nature to do it without even thinking. So you need to call them, they will transform. Now, how are you transformed? Does anybody, this is a Bible question, but how is a person transformed? Say it. By the renewing of your mind. Thank you, Miss Sandra. All of you should be able to answer that. That's probably said 3,000 times since I've been here. You are transformed by the renewing of your mind. I want you to say that with me. Only say my mind. I am renewed by the renewing of my mind. I am transformed by the renewing of my mind. I am transformed by the renewing of my mind. Very good. So this is what the West will bring to you and help you to, and a lot of what you need to let go of and get rid of is stuff you hung on from yesterday. Something that happened yesterday. So it made you mad yesterday and you're still mad today because you didn't let it go. The Bible says do not go to bed at night with anger. Do not let the sun go down with anger, it says. And that's why if you got a companion or a partner or somebody like that, don't go to bed angry. Talk it out, communicate, and do your best, because it will work all night long. So make sure that there's always communication as much as you possibly can. Get somebody to communicate with you. That's sometimes the answer. Now, I gave you these, as pathetic as it is, but you will see east and west. West is kind of saying to the east, I got your back. So when you're facing east, your back is to the west. Now, east is this way, if I'm right. South is that way. West is that way. And north is that way from where you're sitting right now. So you need to figure that out from your house and from your point. And find out which is what. North. Coming to you from the north will inspire you and help you to seek the best outcomes of the most challenging events of the day. What does that mean to you? Some of the most challenging things for me is to catch a clip on the news that's showing people lying dead in Ukraine and babies and children. That's challenging to me. That's challenging. It's challenging to my faith. It's challenging to an all-knowing wisdom God that would allow that. You know, that whole human thing we go through is challenged at that moment. Right? So it is up to us to access our fifth dimension nature in 3D and be able to say, oh well, contracts are being fulfilled. People are leaving by divine appointment. That's a hard one for me because it just looks very unjust to me and horrible. But I see that about everybody who dies. I've never liked death. I've never made real peace with physical death, the way it has to happen, and all that kind of thing like that. But on a spiritual level, I know that it says it's appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. So, is our death an appointment that we can't sometimes change, no matter how many vitamins we take, how many massages we get, how much keto we eat, or anything like that? I mean, those are things that could help under certain circumstances and will, but if the appointment comes up, which is the end of all contracts in a lifetime, is taken up, then the person most likely will end the contract on the planet. I know that's a touchy one. But I call upon the guides of the North to help us to understand that either we believe that there is no coincidences, that everything works together for the best and highest good, or we don't. And if we say this does, but that doesn't, we have fallen into the eagle's world of separation. Do we really know that this spiritual thing we call God is omnipresent? What does omni mean? All. Is it all or not? God's all or nothing. Omnipotent. All powerful. Now that's a challenge. That's a challenge. That's a challenge that I won't get into, but I'd like to get into with you. Like, who's the devil? Who is Satan? If God is all power, then what are we dealing with here? We'll get into that sometime. All right, so we call upon the guides and spirits of 100% pure light to come in and give us a spiritual insight into challenging events that we see with our five senses. Whew, that's the way I want to say it. Everybody get that? So that means I look at something, it knocks me off my faith. Knocks me off my connection to an all-loving, all-wisdom God that knows what he's doing, and all of a sudden I want to question it. But faith never asks why. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Faith is. Not faith was or faith going to be. Faith is. So you have to find that is point of faith that is unmovable. So those from the North will help you to see spiritual insight into things that would knock you out consciously. South. These guides and spirits are to support you and nurture you. to support you. Support you in the time that every kind of rug is being pulled out from under you. Financial rug, religious rug, science rug, medical rug. Everything that we've stood on in 3D is being pulled out from under us, and we're losing balance. We're losing balance more and more in 3D, and you're supposed to be losing balance in 3D, because the losing of balance in 3D will help you to be tuned to a new balance of center in 5D. In 5D. So, on a physical level, any of us that's having any balance issues, we got to be extremely mindful. Make sure that you are mindful and do not end up breaking an ankle or a hip or something like that, even if you have to use the cane. Yeah, I should have Sandra testify right now, because I told her to use that cane a long time ago. So please, don't let pride, if you need a little support and you need something, it's fine to use it. It does not make you weak. It makes the weak say, I am strong. It takes a strength to do those kind of things. So this is what this is all about, as we'll talk about. Now we're going to add to you now, one thing about the South, I wanted to say again, which feeds you with unlimited power and strength. This gives you strength beyond your human strength. This gives you divine strength, sacred strength, core strength, strength you did not know you had. Okay? Will come from the help of the South. Then we're going to add the sixth, which is the vertical. So on your sheet, the vertical goes right down through. It is an extension of the north and the south into a vertical from the core of the earth to the black hole of the galaxy. So dimensions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 actually connects the galaxy with our planet. Now that's important, because when you become more galactic than planetary, first you got to be one with you got to move from the one with the planet to one with the solar system. From the solar system, then you're a solar being, and then if you move from the solar to the galactic, you become a galactic being, and then you become a candidate to move into the particular universe that is yours. And once you understand and become a universal human, as Barbara Marx Hubbard called it, universal human, she called it Homo Universalis. Homo Universalis. When you enter the universal, then you become open to the infinite universes. And that's when you come back into God's source, into the state of nirvana and bliss. So right now, the planet is squeezing us. The planet, Mother Earth right now is like the mother eagle who feeds and takes care of the children, and then something says into her, knock them out of the nest, because they'll never learn to fly. She does that. She has to go and flutter and get them out, because they're comfortable of letting mother and sometimes dad bring all the food to them in the nest. But there's something built within the nature of the species that says, no, they are here, their purpose is to learn to fly, just like us. And the only way to do that is to knock them out of the nest. And Mother Earth right now is knocking us out of the third dimension nest, so that we can learn that we have potentials and possibilities that we never was told of in 3D teachings, whether religious or education or tribal. Some tribes did. But again, what happened to those tribes? They were written off. Aborigines, written off. Native Americans, written off. Those of great indigenous wisdom was written off one by one. And again, that's what's being restored. I want you to get that. Everything that was written off in 3D that has been suppressed and kept from us is now being revealed to us again at this time. Being revealed to us as what? Tools. Tools that are given to us in 3D to help us recenter our hearts in 5D. Tuning forks. Chimes. Crystal bowls. Drumming. Rhythm of any kind is a tool only. It's not a destiny. I have to tell that to people that we train. If you think Home Energetics and using these tuning forks is your destiny, you're not going to last long. This is a stopover. This is a tool to help you clear up and clean some of your old karmic issues so that you can move on. So, the next one, that is the fifth direction, is going to be the vertical axis, going from the core of the earth, 1D, 2D, to 3D, human, 4D is the repatterning of 3D human into 5D pattern. So that's what you're feeling right now. More and more 4D is showing up in 3D, is you're feeling the release of the old patterns that has made up the world. Does everybody get that? Again, the patterns of religion, science, education, finance, medical, all the major systems that controls this 3D world is in great jeopardy right now. 3D governments, those who have held the 3D religious world, those who have held the medical, pharmaceutical world, whether they know it or not, they're heading into crises. Because crisis precedes transformation. And there has to be the breakdown and the breakthrough for the rebuild. We are here to be the rebuilders of this. So the vertical. Now what is the vertical? Vertical axis it's called, which goes all the way into the higher worlds, or Native American would use to Father Sky. But that is their symbol of higher worlds or dimensions. The vertical axis is the gateway to the libraries of the higher dimensions. So if you want to start pulling data and information that's not yet in books or spoken, or the Bible puts it this way, those things which eye hath not seen nor ear heard shall be revealed in this last time. Again, things you've not seen with your eyes or heard with your ears shall be revealed. And it says it will seem as foolishness to them. Do you realize how you can seem foolish to some of your family and friends if you dare share some of this teaching? And that's okay. And then they're going to tell you, but this is what I believe. And you need to say to them in a kindly, loving way, do you realize what you believe at one time was seen also as heresy? Every religion went through their persecution and misunderstanding. Oh, my time is getting away. All right. The vertical. This is 6. And the 7th one that I want to talk about is the center that runs through the human heart. The heart center. Accessing the wisdom. Okay, let me go. 6 was the vertical axis.
That was 5. 5 was the vertical.
Oh.
6 was south to the core of the earth.
Uh-oh, did I get something wrong?
North, south,
Six
east,
was-
west, vertical.
6 was south to the core.
I've got, yeah, I think I missed. No, we got east, west, north, south, vertical.
That was 5.
But I think 5 is linear, and then 6 is the vertical axis. So sorry about that. I did this really quick before I came. So the 5th is going to be how to ascend time and space in linear time. So let's see it as a linear line. Time and space. Now, what that does will allow you to ascend out of the control of third dimensional time and space and allow you to live in the spontaneity of the spirit. In other words, it comes in an hour and a day, you think not. We call them epiphanies. Bursts of information penetrating into the human mind. That should be happening to you more and more as you bring in this 5th dimension that works with you in the linear, undoing the linear time-space illusion that allows you to feel the movement into the next one, which is the vertical, which is always a spiral. So you catch the torsion spin or the spiral when you come to the what? Balance and center of the linear, right? So you don't want to go on this way. You'll drop off into the end of the world, so to speak. So the opportunity is now for us to leave the linear way and begin to connect with the next one, which is the vertical axis. And a lot, I guess, could be said. But anyway, one of the things that you have is a gateway to libraries of the higher dimensions. Now, the heart says when you orient your body in the 6 directions as instructed and enter with all energies. Now listen, and locate yourself in your heart. You can feel yourself vibrating, oscillating in the body. You will literally feel vibration and frequency working at the cellular level. And I've got page 36 bottom here, so let me see what it is. Right. Like any intentional practice, the orientation to the 7 sacred directions entrains your body and transform you, located in the 7 directions as the heart-centered person. You are able to attract to your field what you want and desire. It's from this point that this law of attraction works the best and the quickest. Once you experience the correct orientation, you will never go back to being contracted unless you are traumatized emotionally and knocked out of your center. Even then, you can reorient yourself when you are ready. As with any new practice in life, it is best to learn it in a reserved space away from the hustle and bustle of 3D. That's why you need to find a space. A space. You don't take your phone in that space. If you're going to do it at all on an outward level, you don't take your phone in there. You don't take your coffee cup in there. You just don't take certain things. Keep your room simple. If you're going to use a room, if you have a room that you're thinking about doing this in, keep it simple. Don't put a lot of stuff in there. Keep it plain and simple, and it'll work for you much better than putting a lot of things. If you want to put a few spiritual things, angels or anything like that, that's okay. You should all have an altar space in your house that is oriented to the 4 directions. There you can sit facing the rising sun and meditate, receiving knowledge from the east, west, south, and north. Then you will easily move your consciousness down into earth and enter the sky and exist in your heart. So what that meant, what I said to you, they moved in those directions, but they did not turn. It means even though I go north, south, east, west, down, and up, I do not leave the center of my heart. Heart becomes the new center right now that you need to center yourselves in. And we who have taken heart math, I hope that we've not forgotten all of that, because it's going to be a great tool to you right now, is the teaching, you know. Unity had so much of that. Nancy did wonderful teachings of heart math, and I'm a heart math facilitator. So we need to maybe take a little time to look into heart breathing and all of that, which most of you do, and we do here anyway. But you really need to realize how to find your center in your heart, and then you can experience anything from there. Okay, yes?
Yeah, on Gaia, which you told me to go get, which I have, they have heart math on there. It's the same heart math that Unity does?
Yes. Heart math is heart math.
Okay,
So if you have Gaia, get on there and
okay.
go through it. It's a wonderful experience, and very well known all over the world. This space in your house can be very small, or it can be a room with altars at each of the 4 directions. The house of indigenous people were oriented to the 7 sacred directions, and people were born into this. Altars were repositories and spatial objects that help you to feel and commune with the energy of each direction. Spiritual guides in the east, chaos forces in the west, nurturing spirits in the south, and great record guides of the north. Oh, so what we're talking about today is how do we find a location in 3D while we're going through the transformation of becoming a 5D human. I know my time's up. I really feel for religions that teaches what we see with our 5 senses and these bodies are the ultimate of God's creation. I don't get that. I've had trouble with that most of my life. I do not believe God created my body, and I got that in the 70s. I literally heard in my mind, tell them I did not create their bodies. I gave them the ability to multiply bodies, but they have made bodies. Bodies make other bodies. Spirit does not make bodies. Spirits incarnate in bodies. Now, when the spirit works through the soul to raise it to the level of your spirit, then you will have what I call splesh. Spirit becomes flesh. One of my made-up words. But splesh is when the spirit becomes flesh. And the first thing that it's going to do, and I know I've got to stop, the first thing that's going to transform physically is your blood. It's going to start with the last Adam, the blood of the Lord. And at that point, the vibration of blood, which is congealed light, is released and restored back to the essence of light running through your veins. That's all your blood is. Blood is so dense in 3D that it has developed and formed itself into this stuff that's running in our veins now. But, and you can look this up on the internet, on science, that blood is congealed light. It is trapped light in 3D. But the more that we have, the higher frequencies come in, the less trapped it becomes. And then let me close with this scripture. For life is in the blood, and the life is the light of men. Life is in the blood, and when that life is released in the blood, it becomes the light of men, which is the example of what Yeshua Jesus went through when he was transfigurated, and it says, and he wore garments of light outside of himself. But it was the light that was in him that outrayed him and made a garment that covered him. And at that point, Jesus Christ became Christ Jesus.
When exactly did that happen in his life? You know what?
Book of Matthew.
No, I Was it after the crucifixion or before the crucifixion or?
Before. Before. That's why nothing bothered him in the so-called crucifixion, because he had done all the work. He had transcended the body completely in the Christ identity that he was, because you can't kill Christ. You can't drive nails into Christ's hands. You can't do anything to Christ at all. So when he became the Christ, the body was irrelevant to his identity. And the body was only the tool of the ego, so the only thing that got crucified was the ego. That's great. Tim just found that yesterday, and I said, that is so good. The second coming of Christ is a transformation of human consciousness, a shift from time to be presence, from the thinking of pure consciousness, not the arrival of some man or woman. That's a good one. That's a good one. So, I got to let you go, I know. I got to let you go, I got to go.
Okay.
But transfiguration is what we're heading for. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for your continued support. Important. Believe it or not, next Sunday is the last Sunday of the month again. So let's do our best to
Sounds fun.
make everything happen and keep going on.